Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Travel Market Live. We're on episode 4 today, and we're going to be looking at tours and activities marketplace, the tour guide marketplace, and also looking at digital marketing. We're joined by founder of Viabam, Flavio Amiel, who's been working in the travel industry for well over 10 years. In fact, Flavio, you and I go way back until pre the recession crisis of 2008. So you and I have gone through a bit of a crisis already. How are you dealing with things right now? How's the last few weeks been for yourself, for your business and your family?
Right. Well, from since the beginning of the COVID crisis, the beginning was like hectic because it's a time when you get started, at least in the Spanish market, to get a lot of bookings, for the big holidays in Spain, which is the Semana Santa, the Holy Week. So that's you've been like running through this crazy week, and then right after you get like a huge wave of cancellation because people realize that they are not going to be able to make it to their places. So like the first 3-4 weeks were really hectic, really complicated, and I think most of the tours and activities companies were in panic, yes, but they were so busy working that they weren't thinking like, what are we going to do now? So that was the beginning of it. Personally, we stay home since the beginning, and we are fine. Fortunately, my family is everything safe. Everyone is safe. So yeah. But it was crazy. I didn't. No one knew what was going to happen, so everyone, was freaking out. But we really didn't have a lot of time to freak out.
I mean, it was obviously quite unexpected to many of us, but I mean, what a time for it to hit the tours and activities marketplace just as you were getting this recognition, and then it was becoming a real sector unto its own. Tours and activities is largely in the past. Tourists themselves have had to find them and discover them, or you would be in the hotel lobby and you would find all the leaflets and pamphlets, and you might go to concierge and ask them for a bit of help. But certainly, following your journey with Viabam, which started off as a travel guide and offering ways in which people could perhaps book accommodation or travel, but then you've really sort of encapsulated this idea of the opportunities available for providing business to local tour guides and activities as everything has become more digitalized. And obviously, we also saw Get Your Guide raise quite a bit of capital last year in order to drive that forward. So, I mean, how was that experience over the last few years as you were building up tours and activities, and how was it? What were the challenges that you were facing prior to COVID-19 to make this marketplace work?
Sure. Well, the first thing that happened, I founded Viabam like 2 years ago, and I've been writing travel guides for a decade already. So it's been like a hectic ride, and I understand very well, like the whole funnel for the travel, etc. And the thing with the COVID at this point is that you go through the low season, right? Like we were like in December, January, and February when it starts to pick up, and you get excited because you are also running out of cash. Like most of the companies are like, they have their reserve low because they've been, October, November, December, January, February, and now it's like everyone's getting excited, and then boom. So I think for me, I'm a bootstrapper, meaning that we don't have any funding. We fund the thing ourselves. So we always being very cautious about the kind of cash we have in our account, to actually go through this dry season, I call it. We've been bootstrapping the company And so we have that, but still, we are like, well, how long is this going to last? And the thing with this, different from another crisis, is that you don't know how long it's going to be, and that's what makes it complicated and difficult, because it's totally different to what we have seen in the last 10 years. So if you remember the last crisis, like 2008, 2009, we have like the Lehman Brothers case and all of that. And the crisis was different. Everyone was saying like, well, this is going to last a year, a couple of years. You could see something. You could see like also the tourism industry just changed completely at that moment, and amazing range of opportunities open at that time. You have your Airbnb, which is also doing the experiences. You have Groupon. You have like different companies that were open at that moment. Some of them did thrive, like Airbnb, and others didn't, like Groupon, right? So I think a lot of people, I think people should be cautious at this moment, because you can implement a temporary measure, but you need to be aware that the business model is not going to change radically. It's going to change for some time. So you need to be aware of that. So
Yeah, I guess as well, especially when you mentioned Groupon, it just made me think about how much you're almost self-cannibalizing your own business, because you are offering products at such discounted rates and having to pay Groupon a commission for that, that it's almost unsustainable. We saw many businesses obviously stimulate demand through Groupon, but then was very much hit by the fact that they weren't making any profit on that the revenue wasn't sustainable for them to continue in that way, and they'd almost sort of discounted or they cut the value of their product by offering such huge discounts. I guess that's one thing that we have to be conscious of today, and as you say, really investing in businesses that are either a fad or that's only going to be around for really to solve a problem for a moment in time, and not being able to diversify. I mean, diversification is another matter. How and where do businesses diversify? And we've seen Airbnb, as you mentioned, move into online experiences. Are you concerned about this? Is this now going to be a greater competitor, do you think, to yourselves and the tours and activities marketplace? Or like the way that Airbnb has really reinvented the short stays market, do you think it's going to give greater opportunity for tours and activities?
Well, first of all, I always wonder why Airbnb is doing this. Why are they doing these experiences? And come to think of it, I think it's a little bit of diversifying. They were diversifying their offer, because as we are going to see now, or what we are seeing now, it's like their business is in a very weak positioning, in the sense that real estate is going to change. I mean, it's already changing. Probably it's going to be a temporary thing, but we don't know, right? Because this could be longer than just the crisis. So real estate is going to change. I already spoke with a few. I mean, this is anecdotic, right? But I spoke with maybe like 3 or 4 apartment owners that own places here in Portugal, in Porto and Lisbon, and they already placed their apartments for long term, just for the local market. So because they know it's not going to be easy. Now we have a huge offer, but we are not going to have enough demand, at least for some time. So I think probably that was the reason why Airbnb was trying to do other things, because they have like all the competitors doing the same thing, Booking.com, etc. But also, trying to diversify and own the whole experience of the local experience. So I reckon that's going to be interesting to see. Airbnb already raised $1 billion, I think. But I don't think that's going towards the experiences. I think that's going towards other things which are related to their core business. So I'm not really concerned that's going to change dramatically the scenario of the activity center market.
Now, if we're looking at tours and activities marketplace, as you say, the low season is like hibernation. You prepare for that. You put money aside. You know it's going to be quiet. You might take a 6-month vacation living in a nice hot clime and then go back to the city for which you give tours or activities. And as you say, you're preparing to move back in March and suddenly the market's dead. Have you been speaking to some of your suppliers? What are they working on at the moment? Are they looking at adapting the way they deliver their tours and activities? Can we expect something different from tours and activities in locations when people start traveling again?
I think a lot of them they already have a few years under their belt. So pre-COVID, they were already, maybe last year was like super core for them because a lot of them were already professionalizing their website. They were, now we have better tools than before in this market because like hotel, now we have, integration tools where we can plug our tours and activities company to the different outlets, right? Like Get Your Guide or Viator, etc. We didn't have that before. And now a lot of these companies are working towards getting their brand well known, doing more direct to consumer. They have their own affiliate program. They have different things that they didn't have before. And I find it quite interesting because when I compare it to the hotel market, it's totally different. They are trying to depend a lot less, and they are making a huge effort to do it. Whereas the hoteliers don't care that much. I mean, they know it's a safe bet to go with Booking.com or Hotels.com, and in this case, it's totally different. I'm super surprised by that. But to answer your question, one of the things is that the tourism activities, they know this is going to be temporary. They are not thinking about changing their business model. They are not. Also, they have very flexible structure. So they have maybe like X amount of tour guides that are on their permanent, employee thing. And then they have the other one that are freelancers, maybe just for the summer. Mm-hmm. So they have this flexible structure. And I think that's kind of a good thing for them, or at least at this moment, not so good for the freelancers. But they are not trying to change their business model. They are thinking in the winter season. They are already skipping the whole summer thing. They know they will get some business, but they are just thinking a lot more ahead. So that surprised me. That surprised me because I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't. I mean, like in a regular business to be, 6 months, 7 months without working, that probably means going under. But these people apparently have their, because we are so conscious about this season, that most of the people have enough reserves to keep going. So now they are not changing their business model. What they are doing also is trying to focus on creating more content and leveling up their marketing strategies.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. I mean, what sort of advice or tips that can you give tour operators or tours and activities companies when it comes to setting up their digital marketing platforms, and especially when it comes to having visibility in the market? Do they work with partners? How do they work with partners? Perhaps with Viabam, how could they engage with yourselves in order to have a greater reach when tourists are looking at booking?
Yeah, Well, basically, what I recommend to them is to keep working on their content. Most of them are really good at doing that, and that's why they focus on doing direct to consumer. Um, so I reckon it's very important to get your big outlets to get more traffic. But if you want to level up your own business, you should probably create more content. You're going to be not working for a long time. Then dedicate yourself to create more content, to engage more people, to attract more visitors. And that will be my thing. I will really focus on that because it's something that works. Infographic. They have all the information. They are their tour guides. So they can write about whatever they want about a place or a city or an area. So they are the best ones to answer. It doesn't matter if it's a podcast, video, text, or all of them. It it just needs to get done, and
I
that
guess
will be something.
that's a great way of building a relationship with a tourist before they even come on your tour, through this content, through podcasts, by giving them some highlights of the city so they know all the key sites, they know some of the key history, some of the key facts, and when they then arrive in the destination, they can then choose maybe a more bespoke tour or activity that might actually cater that individual tourist's interests or needs. I mean, we've seen many different experiences being launched in the last few years that is all about that experiential travel, maybe not just doing the standard tour, but actually maybe doing a tour based on art, based on literature and writers, based on where films were filmed, for example. I mean, have you seen more diversification in the way that people offer those sorts of tours? And is it something that might actually come back, or do you think tourists would just be looking for the standard exploration of the city sort of style?
There is a lot of nicheification, right? Like there are a lot of tours and activities that are just niche. As you were saying, like film, like if you go to big cities like New York, you would like to go to all these film places. There are a lot of food and gourmet, very specialized activities. Like here in Portugal, we have like you can go to the Douro and sip your own, glass of port wine in the place, and then get to a very traditional place to get your lunch. Or maybe you can do it super wine geek, just with a enophile and talk with him, etc. So there are several, and this is just one place. There are like different. You can do baguettes in Paris. You can do like so much things. I think that diversification is going to keep going, but I don't think that. Well, they never are going to be, for the masses. It's going to be just for very specialized or people that is really focused on just doing this little thing that gives them the most happiness. So I think that will keep going, and I don't think the market is going to disappear. If we go to the history and the last crisis, the trends at that moment is that people were looking at their money, were more cautious when using their money. So they weren't going for things to the masses. They wanted something special. So the more something special you can offer, probably in this new crisis, that's going to be worth a lot.
Okay, good to know. And when it comes to sort of resources to maybe learn more, or helpful resources for people working in tours and activities marketplace, or to learn more about it, what are your go-to places?
Right. Well, we have, for the English speaking, I will say travelmassive.com is a good place to go. For the Spanish market, we use a lot hosteltour.com, which is ultra specialized on this. And there are like several Facebook groups, dedicated to this, which they are. I'm not usually. I don't really like Facebook, but the Facebook group things is really massive, and it's really engaging, and it's really you can find a lot of people in those places to talk with. And there are several others that are more like kind of independent, that you can find a lot of them are already in Travel Massive. So I would recommend going to travelmassive.com. It's a very good place to go and to learn more and to speak and engage with different.
I was going to say they've got a lot of webinars and webcasts happening at the moment, and it's certainly worth checking out. They have different chapters in different cities and countries around the world. It's one of the largest travel communities that was born out of the fact that there was a lot of entrepreneurs and perhaps people who weren't in sort of senior positions who were invited to the traditional networks. And so this was a great place to sort of like build that network. And I know that they work incredibly well, and it's worth checking out a lot of their programs. Okay, so Flavio, what's going to be your first trip, your first travel when you're allowed to?
Well, before this, we were thinking about going to Mexico, but I think that's going to wait. We are probably going to, we want to do a long trip throughout Portugal. So we already know quite well Portugal, but it's always interesting to go back and to some of these tiny places, really remote places that are super special. Actually, I will recommend also coming to Portugal. Portugal is super nice. People, it's still not super expensive. With the crisis, probably it's going to get a little bit. It's going to lower prices, especially for Airbnbs. In the main cities was a bit expensive already, so it might be a trip worth doing. I'm basically doing a road trip in Portugal. That's what I would do.
Right, it's a beautiful country, and I definitely want to discover more of that when I can. Flavio, thank you ever so much for joining us today, and keep your business and your family safe.
Thank you. You too, Ryan. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No problem. Well, guys, thank you ever so much for listening as well and joining us on this YouTube or podcast, depending on where you've been watching it. This has been Travel Market Life. We're going to be with more episodes. We're going to have Soraya from Yield Planet joining us. We've got AC Group, and we've also got several that you can check out, including looking at revenue management, hotel technology. So check out our episodes, which are in our podcast channel, Travel Market Life, or on YouTube. All the best. Thank you.